Heyo! Welcome to episode 6 of Create This Book Too by Mariah Elizabeth and Ashleigh Monet. That would be me. I sure hope you all enjoyed the bonus video we got this week, but now it is time to get back to normal. We have 3 new prompts to tackle this week, so enough of me talking. Let's jump right in and see what I can create. For the first prompt of the week, create beauty out of ugliness. Choose something you think is ugly, find a way to make it beautiful. Honestly, I think the word ugly is just so harsh, but if I had to pick something that I really dislike the look of, it would be snakes. I wouldn't say I'm afraid of snakes. I don't worry about being bitten or anything like that. And I have held them before many times, but the feeling I get when I see or hold them is just one of total disgust. The squirmy, scaly vibe, blech, I'm just not here for it. I'm sure they are wonderful creatures in their own way. I've heard they make great pets, but I'm just like, no, thank you. They're a species that visually I definitely think could use a bit of improvement. But first things first, we gotta begin with how they actually look. I drew up this cobra using alcohol markers. Now let's use some colored pencils to work on some details. Give those scales some definition and really punch up the colors. Time for some juicy highlights. A quick word about the juicy highlight song. Ever since I reduced its use to once per episode, I have not heard anything except positivity about the highlight song. Then out of the blue this week, I've received negative comments about it. Listen, if you're not a fan, I'm sorry, but I will say that the majority of the feedback on the Juicy Highlight song has been positive. So I'm saying this once and once only.
It is not going anywhere.
You will have to pry the Juicy Highlight song from my cold, dead hands.
Hashtag long live Juicy Highlights.
Okay, this background was supposed to be tan, but it ended up just looking peach. I really don't like that, so I want to change it to a gray. I used an alcohol marker, but for whatever reason, it went down super streaky, which they don't normally. I don't know if it was just because this was like a second coat or what. But I ended up switching gears and just covered it all with some gray acrylic paint instead. Now to Mod Podge. We need to stick him in this book, but first, let's fancy up that prompt. I chose a golden glow for the word beauty and a gray glow for the word ugliness. It's good, but I want to take it a step further. Let me add a little gold gel pen for the word beauty. Bling, bling, baby. Glue him in. And now for this side. Let's work some magic and try to make him beautiful. I guess I was a little overexcited on this one. I started in with my markers, but hi, you gotta do the background first, girly. There, that's better. Now back to my pretty snake. At the risk of coming across as very basic, I'm going to be honest, and I think the most appealing animals are the fluffy ones. So my strategy to create a beautiful cobra is simply to make him a little floof. This one was kind of tricky. I tried to keep the markings consistent with the original cobra, but they ended up looking a little more python. I don't know, whatever, you get it. Haters mute the video. It's juicy highlight time. And again, going in with colored pencils to punch up the details. Look at that little face. Oh, he's almost kissable. Like, why does a fluffy coat automatically make everything cuter? Let's Mod Podge this little cuddle bug. Glue him in. And with that, our first prompt is in the bag. I'm really happy with this one. I definitely feel like I created beauty from something less desirable. I won't say ugly, that's just mean, but this cobra definitely went from something that gives me the willies to something I want to snuggle. Now our next prompt is the exact opposite. Create ugliness out of beauty. Choose something you think is beautiful, find a way to make it ugly. Well, let's start off easy. Something I think is beautiful. I'm sure it's no surprise that I've chosen a cat. I think they are nature's most divine creature. I just love them. They're gorgeous. For this specific drawing, I chose a Himalayan cat, the ones that have the same brown point coloring as the Siamese, but they're fluffier. So much fluff. This is definitely my dream cat. So just like the last, I started with a base of alcohol markers. Oops, jumped ahead of the background again. Now in with our colored pencils. This is where I get to showcase all of the glorious fluff. I think my favorite part of this drawing, though, were those bright blue eyes. They're like two pools so deep. I'm afraid if I dive in, I might never come up for air. A few juicy highlights. I also used my white paint pen to add more of these little hairs. Fully highlighted, just catching those sunbeams. Yes, you know that baby boy is sunbathing right now. Let's Mod Podge him. And before we add him to the book, fancy up that prompt. I kept the same color scheme as the last prompt. Golden brown for beauty, gray for ugliness. But then to punch it up, I used silver gel pen on the word ugliness. Bling Bling version 2.0. Glue him in. Oh, love this. Now to turn something so beautiful into something ugly. The way I figure it, if adding floof can make something more beautiful, taking it away will make it less so. Again, I won't say ugly, just less pretty. I know a whole community of cat lovers that is going to be outraged over this, but I'm drawing a hairless or sphinx cat.
Look what you did to Mr. Bigglesworth!
Now, like I said, I know that the people who love these cats are intense in their feelings for them and probably hate me a little right now. I can't even lie, I truly can't use the word ugly to describe any cat, much less these. I actually think they are really cool looking, almost alien, and I love drawing them. However, the one opportunity I had to touch one was one of the most disturbing experiences of my life. The warm, like floppy, naked skin where soft, cuddly fur should be, it was just so uncomfortable. I can totally appreciate looking at it from afar, but oh god, please don't make me touch it. Oh, let's add a little colored pencil shading. A couple of highlights. And Mod Podge. Glue this one in. You know what? I freaking love this page. Although I guess it's technically a fail because if I'm honest, I actually prefer the quote unquote ugly, not really Sphinx drawing to the beautiful Himalayan. Therefore, I don't think I made the beauty any less appealing. You just can't make a cat ugly, period. Well, that brings us to our last prompt of the week. Create additions. Add to these circles. And then there are some pre-printed circles on the page. Now thinking about circles, my mind kept circling back to buttons. Buttons, buttons, buttons aplenty. As I used my liner, I stuck to this sketchy look, doing multiple passes on each circle. I knew it would be difficult, nearly impossible to do perfect circles, so this kind of camouflages the imperfections. Then I, of course, made sure to do the same thing to the existing circles, so hopefully it would be more difficult to distinguish what I added from what was already there. Next, I added a needle with some thread and weaved that thread all the way up to the prompt, almost as if the prompt was made out of the thread. Then off the other side and stitched it through one of these buttons. Now you may already have a spoiler for my sketch. It is showing up darker than normal on camera for whatever reason today. But the buttons inspired me to go with the movie Coraline. I definitely didn't develop an appreciation for that movie until recently, but man, I like it. It's good and creepy. The main focus of the page, of course, is going to be the other mother. You all know I favor the villains, and she is top shelf creepy. I don't want to fully leave out Coraline, though, so I'll add the little Coraline doll over here. That way it's cute, but still creepy. I decided to use only colored pencils on this page, since with the existing circles, I knew I had to draw directly on the page, and y'all know I can't stand the bleeding. Colored pencils don't bleed at all, so that's what we're going with. I started with my black, obviously that's going to be the majority of the other mother's colors. Then I honed in on a yellow and blue color palette and used that for all the buttons. I colored all the buttons that were drawn from the existing circles yellow so that like in the future, if I flip back, I can pick those out and be like, oh, that's what we started with. And then all of the other buttons get colored blue so I can see what it was that I added. And then let's move on to the Coraline doll, the inspiration for this color palette. She's got the blue yarn hair, the yellow raincoat, her pink shirt, forgot her yellow rain boots, black button eyes, and black skirt. After laying down the colors, I spent what felt like an eternity going over everything with my colorless blender. It was worth it though. It really does make a huge difference. The colors are just bolder and smoother. Plus, I've noticed that the blender actually helps when it comes time to Mod Podge. So if I don't use it, the Mod Podge tends to smear the colored pencil a little. But then for whatever reason, as long as it's blended beforehand, it really doesn't seem to budge. Add a couple of quick highlights. I did end up having to bust out the white Posca for the highlights on the larger buttons, because those are juicy. Let's Mod Podge it all. I actually quite like this one. It's simple, but I'm loving the vibe. Really captures the creepy nature of the movie. Honestly, I'm kind of surprised they pushed the limits so much on a children's movie. Like, I remember my son having nightmares after first seeing it as a young child. But there you have it, and we find ourselves at our recap. We created beauty out of ugliness, taking something I don't quite care for, snakes, and making it infinitely more desirable by adding some fuzz. I seriously want to nose boop that little fuzzy snake. Alternatively, we created ugliness out of beauty, taking the most beautiful thing I can imagine, a Himalayan cat, and removing all of the fuzz, leaving only a sphinx, which oddly I ended up liking more. Still though, don't want to touch it. And lastly, we created additions, adding to a few existing circles an array of buttons, channeling the great animated spooky film, Coraline. The Other Mother really makes this page. She is just my favorite. Well, here's to another fun week. I'm super excited with all of the progress we're making in these books. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, goodbye.